Thank you for joining us. This is Health Your Own Way podcast, and I am your host, Akins. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about Daoist Spiritual Path. My guest is going to explain to you what I'm talking about because I can't explain it to you. So today I'm talking with my friend, Nate Rifkin, who's published a book on the ancient form of meditation from the Taoism tradition. I'm actually really looking forward to this conversation because, trust me, I've never heard of this before, hence why he's on my show, because I want to be educated. In addition to that, Nate would actually be providing us with some insight on a very low point of his life and that he was able to turn around with this use of meditation. So, Nate, thank you very much for being part of this journey with me and on this platform. How are you today?
Oh, I'm blessed, especially now. Thank you, Mo, for having me on the show. And I just hope that I can provide a lot of help to your listeners and give them a boost and some greater health.
I think that is my goal, and I appreciate that because a lot of times many people aren't fully aware of what's out there, and everybody's different, right? So we can start off with what is Taoism. If I'm pronouncing it properly, please re-educate me.
Sure.
What is it and what does it actually entail?
Sure. Oh, let's dive in. So, I was there like 12 years ago. If you told me about something called Taoism, I would have been like, what are you talking about? Like Dow Jones? Dow. Okay. So I had no idea about this. And that's why I'm excited to be talking about this, because even today, few people in the West do. So Taoism is a spiritual tradition that goes back, let's say 5,000, 6,000 years. And it's comes from China. And before that, it actually came from, we're going back like 5,000 years. It comes from shamans in Siberia, and they kind of came their way down to China and kind of it proliferated there. And in the Western world, like 50 years ago, no one knew about it. And even today, very few people know about it. So the way I like to explain it is two ways. One, the whole tenet of Taoism is they seek harmony through balance. So, and this applies to nutrition. This applies to meditation, exercise, other people, your community, nature, your environment, and your career and your family. So everything is about harmony through balance. And we could dive a lot deeper into that. But really, the other way I like to say it is, if you've seen Star Wars and you saw Empire Strikes Back with Yoda, okay, that little guy was a Taoist. Whoever, whoever, I'm serious. Whoever helped George Lucas write that screenplay, like when they create that little character Yoda, they're just like, they must have been studying Taoism. They're just like, I just want to put that little dude in a movie, because everything he talked about, like living his little hut and his humble lifestyle and putting Luke Skywalker through that intense training where, do or do not. There is no try. Like, he was talking about Taoism. So we all kind of have heard of it, but without being told about it.
I think that's interesting that you said that, because I think a lot of stuff that we see on TV or social media or anywhere, it's a form of some type of other culture that's not being spelled out, but we're being fed.
Oh, so, yeah.
I was just thinking that too. And then, okay, so then if it's not well known, who brought you into this? Who taught you, and why did it impact your life so greatly?
Well, yeah, that's a very strange and interesting story. So, first, a little background on me. When I was young, I came from a family that was just devoid of any sort of love or warmth. And my parents were just not equipped to raise children. Very just cold people.
Many people are not. Sorry, Nate. Yeah, many people are not equipped to, Right. Sorry. I'm just saying, I know many people are not.
It's true,
yeah. Sorry.
No, it's totally true. And it's like, a lot of people just don't kind of go through that process of being like, am I ready? I don't know. So anyway, they were like really not ready, and especially not ready for me, because apparently when I was born and as a baby, I was like one of those like rare babies. I was not like quiet and cuddly. So that's what my dad said. So I grew up and I was really like angry kid. I was a socially awkward kid. And as I got older, like we're talking teenager years, I got more and more depressed, because when you're angry and you're not able to process that, it can kind of condense into depression. And it just got worse because the older I got, the more isolated and lonely and frustrated I felt because I couldn't really make deep friends, could not get a date to save my life. And when I graduated high school, I thought to myself, well, I can start over because I can move outside the boring little town where I grew up. And somehow I'll be different. Things will be different. Well, I went to UMass Amherst for college. And within like the first day there, I realized how wrong I was because I could move 1,000 miles away, hang out with totally new people, but I was still me. I still had my same emotional blocks. I still had like my same negative patterns. So I was really upset. And the one kind of light in my life at that point still is I really liked working out. I really loved lifting weights. So I thought, and I want to be a business owner, an entrepreneur, or self-employed somehow. So I want to like combine those. And I realized if I'm going to be like a gym owner or personal trainer or something like that, I didn't know what, but do I really need a college degree? And I'm like, no, and I'm miserable here. So I dropped out. I mean, my grades were terrible anyway, because I was just a sad kid. And I wasn't passionate about studying. So it just, my grades just got worse and worse and worse. Now that's my journey. I mean, I would actually probably encourage most people to not do that, but that's where I went. That's what happened to me. So I actually started studying advertising and marketing, and I realized I had a knack for writing. I really loved writing, and I really loved the more the business marketing side of things. So I partnered up actually with a couple of people, but I started a business with my older brother because he was super into yoga, and he could put together like a course teaching yoga, and I would run all the business side of things. So we had some hit or miss success, or I should say I did, because I was kind of responsible for all of that. But the misses started to add up and the hits started to go down. And I started like spending all my I started maxing out my credit cards to keep things afloat, basically. And I was really depressed at this time. And I started drinking alcohol every morning. And I was doing the goal setting. I was doing the visualizing, like all this self-help stuff that's supposed to work. But I was missing something, and things were getting worse and worse. And it got to a point where I was feeling so depressed that I was thinking about killing myself. It was terrible. So I had a mentor at the time who was teaching marketing and business. He was into Taoism, but he didn't talk about it too much. But finally, he's like, I'm going to start teaching a few things. And he started teaching me about how Taoists will do their meditation while standing, or during their meditations, instead of just simply sitting and being quiet, they'll have certain deep breathing exercises. And I could even talk about one of those in a bit, so people can walk away with it. And my life started to actually get better, and I started practicing every day in the morning. And I went through this phase where I would do a meditation, and then I'd go and I'd still drink. I still drank alcohol, like a couple, I don't know, shots of vodka. Well, it was vodka. I'm just trying to think how much it was, like a couple of shots.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. That's what I did.
Understood.
But here's what happened. As I started meditating every day, like I started feeling so good that eventually it's like the alcohol didn't pull me as much. I didn't feel like I needed it as much. And then one day I took a drink, and it just made me kind of feel drunken out of it. And I thought to myself, I wonder what happens if I keep meditating. And the very next, it was within the next day or the next 2 days, the drinking alcohol in the morning, I took a sip, and it actually kind of brought me down and made me feel worse.
Okay.
So I stopped. Because I didn't feel good doing it. So I didn't need to use any willpower. I just stopped drinking in the morning. And other people started to say, hey, Nate, you're looking, something's different about you. You're kind of looking more confident. You're looking a little bit more cheerful. And I realized this isn't just in my head. Something's going on here. So then I just decided to dedicate myself to this as much as possible, because it was the only thing in my life that was working out. So And so that's sort of my background. And to answer your question, like where I learned it from, it was from that mentor. And eventually he and I actually had a falling out. He turned out to be kind of a mean teacher.
Okay.
So I went back and forth on like whether or not I should credit him. And I realized the guy was kind of he had such an abusive side with some of his students that I decided to kind of make him anonymous. And, if he has a problem with that, he should have been a more virtuous teacher. So, but that's where I learned it. And it was a good lesson in learning to separate the teaching from the human being, because the spiritual tradition has a lot of value, even if the guy who taught it to me was still on his path, let's say.
Okay, fair enough. We could just call
Yeah.
him, the nice. I get what you're saying. I think
Yeah.
for me, while I'm listening to you and for your process, to me, at no point did you. I think you just tried it out. You weren't skeptical. Please, and you just basically said, at this point, nothing else is going well. It doesn't hurt to try it. And then over time, you saw you basically didn't need the stimulants from like the alcohol or whatever you're using, because you were basically getting it from somewhere else. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I think it's very fair to say. It's like, even if I had kind of a feeling of like, I don't know, you're right. I didn't let it stop me from trying. So, and I think that's kind of like the definition of skepticism, is like whether or not it's actually going to stop you from even trying.
Okay, then for somebody like me, well, actually not like me, because I don't have that kind of stress level. Maybe I do. I don't know. I mean, I might be in denial right now, but
Probably. Well, it sounds like no. I don't think you do.
I think for many individuals are maybe struggling, if they're battling any addictions or mental health problems, what would you say to them about possibly, embracing this option as something to help them going forward?
Well, it's a great question, and I can speak to my story, and everyone has their different paths. So, I mean, I would say that oftentimes when someone has that tendency where there's an addictive personality, it's often rooted in a spiritual longing.
Okay.
And it's just something a lot of people just don't know about. So that's never really explored. Like even Alcoholics Anonymous, actually, there's a spiritual component to that, in that you have to have that relationship with God in order to like go through the 12 steps. But I think a lot of times they develop addictions because they're yearning to fill a hole in their life that cannot be filled by anything from developing or going on that spiritual walk. So I know from my experience that can be very helpful, and that there's really no substitute, especially if you come from a hard situation with family, or you don't have supportive friends. Oftentimes it's pushing you toward an inner journey.
I like that. I think what I'm understanding from you is basically, uh, if you are struggling, it's something in words, and having maybe trying Taoism or anything that helps you understand what that hole it is that you're suffering with could help you resolve some of the problems you have. But you have to be at least open to it. That's how I see it. You have to be open to it.
Yeah.
To at least try to solve some of your problems. And some people may not be ready, may not be there, but you're sharing your stories just in case somebody is out there that's ready or wants to, that this is an option out there. And that's a great segue to what I'm going to ask you next, Nate. So I know that you wrote a book, and we said you're an author. It's calling the Standing Meditation. Enlighten me. Why did you feel like you need to write the book?
Well, after 12 years of going on this path, I looked around and I'm like, I actually managed to get my life together. I did. And it's kind of, no, it's kind of cool, because I'm still involved in the marketing industry, and I see a lot of self-help stuff, and I've kind of peeked behind the curtain up to see a lot of people are selling how to succeed in this, how to do this, and they've never actually done it. Now, I could see someone like talking about their journey as they go through, but there are people who are just like flat out saying, it's like, oh no, I'm a happy, successful, wealthy person, and they're struggling, and they're in debt, and they've got addiction. So knowing this, when I actually looked around, I was just like, hey, I'm actually a happy guy, and I'm actually out of debt, and I'm actually doing this, and I got married. It's like there's really something to that. So I realized very few people know about, like, how do I put this? A lot of people want to explore the spiritual side of their life and walk their spiritual path, but
Okay.
there's not, it's like, okay, well, how do I do that? Well, I realized that by sharing my story of how I did that, even though I started as someone who's just like, I have no idea what's going on. I don't know. I could barely spell spiritual. So I realized I can combine my love of writing with this story and with like as I see it, like a group of people who could really benefit from this information. So about 3 years ago, I just started writing the book, and I threw out the first draft. I started over again, and I worked pretty hard on this. And I decided, like, just like 12 years ago, when I really wanted to dedicate my life to the spiritual path, I wanted to dedicate myself to producing the best book I could. And that was my mindset, the best book I could. And that was my mindset when I created, and that was sort of my mindset when I reached out to you to see if we could have a conversation today.
So basically, it's your passion. It's your passion project, like something.
It really is. Yeah, it really is. Absolutely.
Because I can see why. You weren't searching for something, but you found something found you, helped you along, and I think you see a lot of people that write, how to get the best life, whatever, like those help gurus, right? And sometimes a lot of people, they don't realize that they're suffering as well. So I think you were basically saying, my life is good. I was able to come out of this. I think I have something to say. And I'm basically backing up with what I went through personally to show you that this is possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we're all still growing. As my
Yes.
teachers like to say, it's just like, if you can go to the nearest pool and see if you could walk on water. If not, then you still got some growing to do. So I still have some growing to do. Yeah, but there's a lot of people.
Hold on, can people actually walk on water? No, seriously, can people actually walk on water?
I've never seen it.
Okay, just making sure. So we all have a lot of growing to do. I was just like, did I miss something?
If trust me, if I do see it, well, I don't know, maybe. I don't think anyone would believe me if I saw it.
You would have to record it.
No, really?
If it's not on social media, Nate, it didn't happen. It didn't happen.
Bust out my phone and they reach the other end. She reaches the other end of the pool. I'm like, no, do it again. I didn't get it. So yeah, but it might be, but yeah, a lot of people in our industry, they take it to the extreme where they're just like, they're not even honest about where they're at in life. So, and I think that creates kind of a negative cycle, because I think there's a transmission of energy between the teacher or the book and the student. So you could hear information from one person where they really haven't been there, and it might hit you in a different way, where if someone's actually been there, it could be the same information and it's actually going to penetrate and really elicit a change in you that's genuine and ultimately healthy.
So I have a question for you. Are you teaching this out there to people, or is it like, if a lot of people, sorry, let me step back. If there's people that are watching or listening right now, they're saying, okay, you know what, I'm interested in what you're saying, Nate. I want to get more, I want to get your book, maybe follow your journey. How can they do that? Can they reach out to you? Where can they buy your book, and where are you on what social media platform?
Well, thanks. The best way is on Amazon. So my book's called The Standing Meditation. You can find on Amazon. And I actually got the domain name, thestandingmeditation.com, which I think just goes to my Amazon page. But that's really the best way, because I kind of created the book like, if someone's just at step 0 and they just crack it open, it's like I wrote it in such a way where that it would be the most helpful. You don't need to know anything else or have any kind of previous experience. It's just like you drop down onto earth, you open the book, and that's the way I wrote it.
I like that. So it's not like overly complicated. It's basically a how-to, but with some in-depth on your background and your history.
Yeah, because I think as people, we learn best through stories. Okay. Maybe it's even kind of the only way we learn it, because we can, I mean, if you want information without the stories, you just go to, I was about to say an encyclopedia, but now we've got like Wikipedia. So
I haven't heard encyclopedia in years. I feel so old. I do.
I grew up like there's that
like the
wall.
books.
It was like
Yes,
the thing.
yes.
They're like dark. Yeah.
Yo, Nate, we're aging ourselves, Nate. We're aging ourselves. Let's just stop talking.
All right, better.
It's called Google everything, okay? People just Google it.
Yeah. I'm gonna go make a mixtape now.
So go ahead, Nate.
I was just gonna say, yeah. So I think we learn best through stories because that's a way to like, it transmits the information while simultaneously inspiring and also creating belief, because we need to bring our own inspiration and we need to like create our own belief before anything is going to work. Even if something could work, we still need to believe that it will, so we don't block the results inwardly.
I get what you're saying. And I think, for a lot of us, many people, you're right. Like for you to start the journey itself, you have to be open to it and you have to believe that you can get there. And, using your book itself can help them guide them there. If you have tried everything or you don't know where to start, it doesn't hurt to get Nate's book and see if that's something that works best for you. If not, that's you. Nate's bringing out that it worked for him, and that's all the best. I think before I let you go, Nate, so what's next for you?
Probably just more spreading the word about this book and talking to people about Taoism and talking about how it's just like, probably what's next for me is after this, I'm gonna go take a glass of water. No, really. And then I'm just gonna like calm down, and because it's been pretty fun and exciting, and just kind of breathe into my belly a bit and just get centered. And then after that, think about more how I can spread the word about my book. Because I think honestly, like I'm gonna be having conversations like this for a long time and talking to people for a long time. And that's okay. I like to keep things simple.
There's nothing wrong with that because again, I haven't heard of this specific type of meditation. I think a lot of people are searching for ways to help themselves. And if this is something that can help somebody, if you can get the word out, then it's a good thing.
Well, I appreciate you helping me out with that. Thank you so much.
I want to say thank you for being on the show. It was enlightening, a lot to learn, and it was actually a great conversation.
Yeah, I had lots of fun. I appreciate it.
We're glad to have you join us. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, share with anyone that needs to be empowered and inspired, and don't forget to join us next week for the next episode of Health Your Way Podcast. Have a good day, you guys.